What is going on, everybody? And welcome back to episode number 2 of Random Album Reviews. This is the segment on my channel where I spin a wheel, get a letter, and choose a random album from my record collection. And I released my first random album review not that long ago, and I had a ton of fun doing this. It was just nice and refreshing to talk about something different and something that I'm passionate about. And I hope that those of you out there who watched it really enjoyed it. And you guys can let me know in the comments if you enjoy the format. Originally, I was going to try to incorporate some segments of songs in it, but I was having some issues with like copyright. And so it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. I can try to provide some links to like YouTube videos and songs down below so you guys can check out some of the segments of that. Obviously, if I could incorporate it here, I would, but I'm not able to. So today, let's find out what album that we're going to do. So I'm going to pull up my wheel here. It'll come up on screen. We are spinning the wheel, and we are going to find out which letter of the alphabet that we get today. And the letter of the alphabet we've got is the letter R. So for the letter R, I'm going to run out real quick to my record collection, grab an album that we will be discussing today. So I grabbed a record from my collection, and this is arguably one of my favorite albums of all time. I think this is one of the most beautifully composed, just incredibly well thought out records, and that is going to be the album In Rainbows from the band Radiohead. And I'm really excited to talk about this album with you guys today because my introduction to Radiohead was a little bit different. I'm 35 years old now, and obviously I was exposed to Radiohead in my youth when it comes to songs like Creep and Fake Plastic Trees and a lot of Radiohead's music from early on in their career. But I didn't really start to love Radiohead's music until I was in my mid to later 20s. Probably like 27, 28 was really when I kind of jumped on board and started really loving their material. And part of the reason for why I wanted to listen to Radiohead's music was when Johnny Greenwood got involved in composing, and later on Tom York with his score for Suspiria. But Johnny Greenwood worked really heavily with Paul Thomas Anderson a lot in his career, and I was absolutely obsessed with his film scores and just thought that he was one of the greatest composers that I'd ever heard. And like the way the music so seamlessly moved with Paul Thomas Anderson's films, and then obviously he's worked with Lynn Ramsey on You Were Never Really Here. He's done a lot of really great projects, and I was like, well, this guy is the guitar player for Radiohead. And then Tom York, obviously, the Suspiria score is phenomenal. It's one of my favorite scores to a film in probably the past 20 years. And so knowing just how prolific and talented both of them are in their respective fields, I wanted to devote more time to Radiohead's music. And the first song outside of Creep and Fake Plastic Trees that I heard from Radiohead was actually on this record, and that is the closing track of the album, Videotape. And I had never heard a song that I felt like so viscerally captured someone's emotional state in such a raw and realistic way. I think the lyrics to that song are so thought-provoking and honestly kind of devastating, thinking about like the end of your life and how you would reflect on the end of your life and the things that would go through your head. And Tom just has this way of singing from his gut where it just feel like every bit of emotion that he's trying to get out to you in Videotape in particular is just incredible. Like I can't ever get over when I listen to this album and I revisit it again and again and again, how much emotion I still feel. Because sometimes, you know, you hear an album and you'll revisit it again and again, and after a while you're like, yeah, I still enjoy this, but it doesn't necessarily hit the same emotional beats. I never feel that with Radiohead's music. I feel like every time I come back around to Radiohead and any of their albums, that I still get the same kind of emotional reaction each time. And one of the things that I love about In Rainbows, and there's a couple other of their albums that are up there for me, In Rainbows is such a unique experience because the production on this album and the instrumentation on this album, the best way that I can describe it, not being like the most musically minded person, is that it feels incredibly minimal, but also very complex at the same time. One of the things I love is the way the drums are mixed on this album. There's something about it that you can just I play drums, and sometimes when you like hear just the precision of how the drums are coming through in each song, it just really carries the track. And then like the guitar, the tones that they're using for the distortion of the guitar in this, or when it's like a cleaner distortion, it's something about the way that it all translates through together. There's like a beauty in the simplicity of that. Like I think about Weird Fishes, are the which is one of the most incredible tracks on this album, and just the intro to it really kind of feels like you're being submerged underwater, and until you experience it, it's kind of difficult to completely describe with words. But something about the soundscape, it really just feels like you're kind of being immersed underwater. And it's like the way the guitar tones are mixed with the bass, and then Tom's vocals in that song. I just really love that track, and I think it's one of the standouts on the album. 15 Step is such like a cool track to start the album on. It's very high energy. The lyrics are so fascinating on that song, and I feel like it's a very nice way to sort of capture the attention on the record. And Radiohead doesn't ever have a hard time like really just kind of pulling you in from the get-go. But 15 Step is one of those songs, like I think about it a lot. It's also similar to what I say about Weird Fishes. There's so many like guitar riffs on this record that even though like there's not a bunch of guitar solos, the riffs on this record are distinctly recognizable. Like when Tom in 15 Steps like singing "Used to Be Alright, What Happened," and you're hearing that guitar riff like play in the background over and over again, it just immediately comes to the front of my brain as soon as like I think about that. And then like the little sound clips played of like the kids celebrating in the background. There's just so many little cool details throughout this record. Then you have a song like Body Snatchers, which is just like so in your face, and like literally Tom's vocals complementing the very intense lyrical content of that track. That's one that really grabs my attention every time I listen to the record. And then like you have something like House of Cards, which is a little bit more stripped back. And what I like about this is it's an emotional roller coaster ride as far as the tone of the songs. There's a lot of really in your face, like the guitar is just right there, but then you'll have something like All I Need that's just very kind of stripped back and quiet, and the lyrics really match that well. And like I said, Videotape, probably one of the most emotionally devastating, thoughtful tracks that I've ever heard in my life. And I think Tom is a very beautiful songwriter because he doesn't necessarily have to like have a ton of lyrics on a track, like, but the lyrics that he uses, they convey such a distinct feeling that I feel like anyone that's listening to it can resonate with the things that he's talking about. And throughout his career, this record is very close to OK Computer for me as my favorite in Radiohead's discography. But there's something about this, like I think so distinctly about putting on headphones and sitting in like a dark room and just kind of absorbing this album and appreciating this album. And it's what I think makes Radiohead such a special band, is like they have an approach to songwriting that is just so distinctly different than a lot of bands in the same type of genre. And what I think so cool about Radiohead is throughout their career, they've been so willing to experiment with genre and do things that a lot of other bands in the same sort of subsect wouldn't be willing to do. And I think this is one of the most brilliant albums ever recorded. I think if you're going to listen to Radiohead, this is a really good entryway point. This and OK Computer are probably the two best records to kind of give you an idea of who Radiohead is now, because I don't feel like their first two albums are really a great indicator of who this band has become. Pablo Honey's not a great record. I like the Bends a lot more than Pablo Honey, but I still don't think that those give you a great indication of who this band is going to be later on in their career. But this album, remarkable. The soundscapes are just truly some of the most unique ever recorded. And I love this record a lot, and I'll continue to recommend it to virtually everyone. So have you heard Radioheads and Rainbows? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. I think this record is brilliant, and I love it more and more every time I listen to it. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.